Hola, amigos, and welcome to Spain Impossible. I am your host, Jim, and today we are talking November updates. Oh man, November was freaking a great month, man. I've been continuing to learn my Spanish, which is actually hysterical. Just using Duolingo right now, which I realize is not the end all beat all, but I'm just trying to get some words flowing in the old mind here before I dive into anything else at this point in time. And I've been, trying to read a little bit here and there and listen a little bit here and there when I come across videos and things like that. But as far as the Spain move goes, like I've said before, we are continuing to learn. Just found out a great deal of information about the student visa, which may be an option for my son since he's going to be 18 and he does want to go to Spain with me. He is on the autism spectrum, so there's a possibility that he could still be considered my dependent. But he wants to continue his education, so good on him. So I wanted to learn more about the student visa and what options are available to him there as far as just getting a visa on his own in order to go to Spain and, learn. And something's going on with the light. I think I got to turn that thing off. No. Oh, yeah. Yep. It's that light. Okay. Well, we'll go this way, and we'll just have to deal with it because that light kind of rippling down the screen was driving me crazy. Anyways, Spain is just, like I said, we just crossed. We're now under 700 days to moving to Spain. And I was out shoveling over the weekend because we got hit with a big, huge snowstorm here up in the north, and I happened to be home for it for Thanksgiving and all that. And that'll be part of the Thanksgiving will be part of talking about the wait for the month. But man, oh man, I don't know if I can last through this winter and next winter. But my son graduates high school after next school year. So just going to have to keep putting up with it, man. I was out for hours digging us out with the snowblower, with the shovel. And then, of course, the plows come through and boom, the whole freaking end of the driveway is buried. And I got to go back out there, 3-4 hours later. Those of you that deal with snow, you know what I'm talking about. I was freezing. It took until I got in the shower later that night for my toes to finally freaking warm up. And I was wearing 3 pairs of socks, man, in my boots. And it wasn't like they got wet. It was just freaking cold. And right now it's bitter cold. I'm in my van right now. Luckily, I started off this morning at home, so I'm not far from home. I had a little short run, which sometimes the short runs are good. And just kind of hanging out for right now before I head back to the homestead. And I thought, you know what? I've been dying to make a video now for a couple of days. So let's get on there and make a video right now and talk about some things. November updates is the perfect thing. As far as the debt goes, I paid about $500 extra last month because I had some good weeks going into Thanksgiving, which is sometimes kind of a surprise because freight can be pretty dry around the holidays, and we'll see how December goes. So far, we've started off December real well. So I'm not complaining. I'm just crossing the old fingers and saying, hey, man, I hope we have a good month now and I can continue to add up, at least $500 a month paying off towards that debt. So at least we got some traction on that this month. So that's it for the debt. And like I said, that's going to be even more of a focus as we hit the weight loss goal and I get through all the steps in the blueprint, which brings us to the weight. What did I lose in November? Now, let me start this off by prefacing, if you haven't seen them, step 10 and step 11 of the blueprint, I talk a lot about reintroducing some of your favorite foods and seeing how they affect you. And step 11 is all about pausing, which is basically not stepping out of the blueprint, but really kind of just going, other than some basics, I'm going to see what happens for a couple of weeks when I start to just kind of go with the flow. And because my wife knew about this, of course, she wanted some things for dinner, which, chili chili's fantastic, man. It's loaded with fiber, especially if you do a lot of beans in your chili. And, my wife likes ground beef, and I'm trying to stay away from that kind of stuff. So I snuck in some tofu along with the ground beef last time I made chili, and it was really good. I mean, I just crumbled it up, just took a brick of extra firm tofu and crumbled maybe a third of it up into the chili. So my wife was like, "You put tofu in this?" I'm like, "Yeah, but did it taste bad?" She's like, "No, it didn't taste bad at all." I'm like, "See, eating some alternative things is not a bad deal." So, and chili's great too, because if you do a nice big batch of it in the crock pot, you got leftovers. And like I said, all those beans, they're loaded with fiber, they're loaded with vitamins, they're loaded with minerals, they're loaded with phytonutrients, they're loaded with all the great stuff that your body loves. It's just that your spouse doesn't always like you after you have chili, especially at nighttime, and don't light a match in the bedroom after you've had chili. You know what I'm talking about. But when you get into the blueprint and you're getting that extra fiber every day and your body starts to get used to it, it's not nearly as bad as if, you got chili once a month and that's the only fiber you're getting, and it bloats you up and fills you full of gas and all those good things. But so bearing in mind that I was in October and into the first part of November trying to add back in some things and maybe have some foods that I haven't had in a long time. And unfortunately, here in America, I mean, anything at a restaurant is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, you can't get, without paying, $30 for a meal or something like that for a single person, you can't get anything that's really good for you unless all you want to do is order a salad. So, and then I went into the pause and I did a 2-week pause. And the end of the 2-week pause was this past weekend. So right after Thanksgiving. So I had Thanksgiving dinner. I did a thing about the holidays, and I didn't go out of control. There's no, you know what? I didn't even have any meat for Thanksgiving. I did have a couple of deviled eggs because I make deviled eggs, and every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, I am told that I am bringing deviled eggs because I make really good deviled eggs. But I only had 2. My wife had like 6 or 8 of them. My brother-in-law, I think, had like 10. And I went up to get food. We had those laying out, the appetizers and stuff. I went up to the food line once everything was ready to go. The turkey's all carved and all the side dishes are out and stuff like that. And we kind of do it cafeteria style. And I got to the container of deviled eggs, and there was only 3 left out of the big batch of deviled eggs I made. I went, ooh. I said, well, I'm not going to have another deviled egg because I had 2 earlier. Because I want to make sure that everybody that's there from the family gets, if they want a deviled egg, they can have a deviled egg. So I had, green bean casserole, which I made as well because, everybody told me, you got to bring green bean casserole. I'm telling you, man, just over the years, I've just learned how to make things. And it's not from a recipe. It's just from trial and error and doing different things and trying different things. So don't be afraid to experiment a little bit. I made something that I was going to take with me on the road. And I was like, well, that didn't turn out after I had it like 3 or 4 times, because you got to give it a try. But so that ended up in, from the freezer into the trash bin. But, what are you going to do? You got to try new things. So with that said, I gained in November 1.4 pounds. Now that's coming out of Thanksgiving. So, from November 1st to December 1st, which Thanksgiving this year, 2025, fell on Thursday, the 28th. And I did my 36-hour fast on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving dinner, because you know what? I had a piece of pumpkin pie with probably a little too much whipped cream on it. And I had been kind of graze eating and things like that while we were waiting for Thanksgiving dinner to be done. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw my 36-hour fast in here. So I came out of my pause on Sunday, and Monday is my typical day when I do my 36-hour fast for the week, which I have been doing quite regularly for quite a while now. And I'm going to be in step 12. I'm going to cover a little bit more of what's called the 5-2 fasting method. So I'm going to give that a try for December. But here's what I always preach to you guys. I stepped outside the blueprint for the month of November, doing both the, trying to bring in some foods that are not necessarily blueprint, and also with taking the 2-week pause. So I stepped outside the blueprint for an entire month and put on 1.4 pounds. And that, my friends, is how you gain 80 pounds over several years. It's just the creep. If you put on a half a pound to a pound every month, maybe you lose a little weight for summertime because you're getting more active and yada, yada, yada. But in the wintertime, maybe you're not as active and you start that 1 pound or pound and a half or maybe even 2 pounds every month, and it just creeps on. So by the time you're in your 50s, even if you weren't like me, I was fat when I was 8. So I had a weight problem when I was young, and it just continued. But you wonder how you go from 200 pounds in high school to over 300 pounds in your 50s. It's that creep. And I just proved it to myself again. So December, we are diving back into the blueprint. And you guys know how I like to say on my fasting days, no thank you, I'm fasting. When I think about stuff now, this month, I said, no thank you, not for December. Maybe in January, but not for December, because we are re-engaging wholeheartedly all meals on the blueprint, with the exception of, and even when I was on the blueprint before, we would have a taco night occasionally at home. My wife loves tacos. In the wintertime, my wife loves chili. So if we have, my wife asked me to make something, and I told her too, because in November she was having me make other meals. She had me make some pasta meals and some other things that I make. And she's like, all right, since you're kind of not 100 whole hog into this blueprint thing, then I want this and I want that, and we haven't had this in a while, and you can cook this for me, which I love my wife dearly, so that I go, yes, dear. But I told her, I said, for the month of December, other than my daughter is coming into town a little before Christmas, and we have like a big family dinner at a restaurant, and I'm going to do my best to do my duty to stay in the blueprint as much as I can for that one dinner. And then obviously we have Christmas dinner. I don't think we're going to do anything for New Year's this year. Sometimes our New Year's plans come together like New Year's Eve. But at this point in time, we have no plans whatsoever. To me, it's just kind of another day. I'm in my 50s. Back in my 20s, yeah, man, New Year's Eve. But we've got obviously a Christmas dinner to go through with the same family we just had Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm going to treat it as a holiday. I'm going to treat it as a day, and I will probably eat as best I can. I know I have to bring deviled eggs to that as well, so I'll probably stick to 1 or 2 because they are really good. But it's this kind of thing that as I got to 80 pounds down, I was like, all right, how do I make this a long lasting change? How do I continue and maintain the weight when I get to where I want to be? Not just the 100 pounds, because I'm already thinking, I'm probably going to have to lose another 15, 20, maybe 25, maybe even 30 pounds more than the 100. We're going to get to the 100 by April. That's never been a doubt in my mind. But how do I live life and maintain? And that's what I've been trying to figure out. And that's what I did in November, is I was trying to do this. Step 11 is about, the pause. And the pause is all about, can I maintain? But I really hadn't lost much the first 2 weeks in November, because I was trying to figure out, like, okay, how can I, have that Arby's roast beef sandwich and curly fries that I've been thinking about? How can I have those couple slices of pizza? How can I do these things in real life after I'm out of the weight loss program and not experience that 1, 2, 3 pounds of creep? And slowly over time creep myself back up to, over 200 pounds and be like, oh man, I better lose some weight. I'm over 200 pounds. Which is going to be a different story in my life anyways. I just kind of walked away from worrying at all about my weight for years. I had too many things going on with raising 6 kids to be even remotely concerned about it, other than, oh man, I need a diet every year. And it was always like right around summertime, like, I need a diet, I need to take some weight off. But it never stuck. It never stuck. And it was always like 20 pounds, 25 pounds, and then I'd plateau and nothing else would come off, and I'd be like, well, screw it. um, so it's about, how do I maintain this weight loss once I get to the point where I'm like, I am good. And when I get to the point where I say I am good, I will probably cut back to scaling, once a week, something like that. Um, and then what I will do is I will watch for the creep. But I still have to eat a healthy diet. I still have to, incorporate as many of the veggies and fruits that I can, and the beans and legumes and, nuts and seeds and things like that I've learned about through the course of the blueprint. And so I'm going to have to figure this stuff out in order to not become a fat guy again. But I will have a new set point in my mind, and I will, like I said, I'll scale once a week, and man, it'll be a small amount. It'll be like 10 pounds. Like if I'm up 10 pounds over the weight where I want to be, boom, back into the blueprint until I get that 10 pounds off, which should be like 30 days. I tend to lose more than 10 pounds a month during a 30-day period. So you guys will have to stay tuned for December. I'm going to also record step 12, which will be out either this week or next week. And step 12 is going to be further into the pause and kind of on the tail end of it, the reevaluation of what you're doing and how you're going to proceed from here. Because I recommend doing the pauses earlier than 80 pounds down. I was just so worried that if I didn't just plow through and get the majority of this weight off, I was not going to be able to continue to maintain it. So I put off my pausing, and I do not recommend that. I recommend to do it somewhere around 40, 50 pounds, just to see what life is like for 2 weeks, and then get back into the blueprint and continue to lose weight. But that's November. That's the weight. That's the debt. That's the move into Spain. Got some exciting news about the student visa for my son. Got a little bit of the debt paid off because I had a good month in November for haul and freight. And we got to do a little bit of, how do we maintain this? How do we rethink this? And how do we continue once we reach our goal weight so that we're never fat again? And that's it for today, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm glad you stuck around with me. Everybody who's subscribed to the channel, thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why the hell not? Subscribe to the channel. That's the only way you're going to get all the good stuff. I've got a cruise coming up in April. I'm going to bring you guys along for that, even though this isn't going to be a cruising channel. My wife and I love to cruise, and it's a vacation, and might as well take you along and see how I either do or don't keep my weight in check while I'm on the cruise ship, because we're 11 days. So I'm sure I'm going to gain a few pounds on that cruise. But we are going to be past our goal weight. We are going to be, if not at the weight that we want to be at, very close to the weight that we want to be at. And when we get off the cruise, we're going to dive right back into the blueprint to make sure that we get to where we want to go. But that'll be coming up. So give me the old thumbs up. The YouTube algorithm needs to spread this out to other people, because this changed my life, and I know it can change others. And I'm just talking about the weight loss. But, if people get out of debt, it's going to change their life. If people want to move to Europe, maybe not specifically Spain, or just want to move out of the US, that kind of information is stuff that they're going to need to hear. So help me spread this around. And of course, comment. I love engaging with you guys in the comments. Drop a comment down below. Say, hey man, glad to see that you're still doing this after, what has it been now, 8 months? And I'm just going to continue to put it out there. But check out step 11, check out step 12 here in the next week or two. Thanks for coming along with me. And as always, guys, come along for this journey because it is going to be one hell of a journey. Hasta luego.